Meet Jim Dixon, a temporary assistant lecturer in medieval history at a red brick university. He's a man perpetually at odds with his surroundings. He despises the pretentiousness of academia and the stifling conformity of middle-class life. His internal monologue is a constant stream of sarcastic observations and witty critiques. Jim's disdain for his colleagues, particularly Professor Welch, is palpable. He finds their academic pursuits trivial and their social gatherings excruciating. Jim's discomfort is amplified by his constant fear of losing his job. He knows his position is precarious, dependent on the whims of Professor Welch. This anxiety fuels his awkward attempts to impress his superiors, which invariably backfire. He is trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage, his efforts to conform only highlighting his inherent rebelliousness. His internal struggles manifest as outward clumsiness, making him a walking disaster zone. Jim's only solace comes from his cynical humor and the occasional cigarette. He uses sarcasm as a shield, deflecting the absurdity of his situation with witty remarks. He finds refuge in his private thoughts, where he can freely mock the pretensions he encounters daily. His internal world is a vibrant contrast to the drab reality of his academic life. He dreams of escaping the confines of the university and finding a life where he can be authentic and free. His predicament resonates with anyone who has felt trapped in a job they hate. Jim's struggles are a humorous reflection of the universal experience of navigating work and social expectations. He is a relatable everyman, albeit a particularly witty and cynical one. His journey is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to find humor and hope, even in the most trying of circumstances. Jim's attempts to navigate the treacherous waters of academia are a constant source of amusement and frustration. He attends faculty meetings with a mixture of dread and detachment, his mind wandering as his colleagues drone on about departmental politics and academic minutiae. He finds himself trapped in conversations with pompous professors and their pretentious wives, desperately trying to maintain a semblance of politeness while inwardly cringing. His social awkwardness is exacerbated by his constant fear of saying the wrong thing, a fear that often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. He struggles to find common ground with his colleagues, whose interests and values seem alien to him. He finds their obsession with academic prestige and social status baffling, and their conversations about art, music, and literature leave him feeling lost and confused. He prefers the company of Bertrand, the eccentric and unpredictable son of Professor Welch. Bertrand provides a welcome respite from the suffocating world of academia, offering Jim a glimpse into a world beyond the confines of the university. Jim's attempts to impress Professor Welch are particularly disastrous. He tries to feign interest in Welch's amateur artistic pursuits, attending a disastrous weekend art retreat that culminates in a drunken escapade and a damaged painting. He struggles to engage in intellectual conversations with Welch, his lack of knowledge about medieval music and art exposed in embarrassing fashion. He finds himself constantly apologizing for his blunders, further solidifying his image as the department's resident klutz. His clumsiness extends beyond social interactions. He is prone to spilling drinks, tripping over furniture, and generally making a mess of himself. He is a walking embodiment of Murphy's Law, a magnet for mishaps and misfortunes. His physical awkwardness mirrors his social awkwardness, both stemming from his underlying discomfort with the world around him. He is a man out of sync with his environment, a square peg in a round hole. He longs for a world where he can be himself without the constant pressure to conform. The disastrous art weekend at Professor Welch's cottage is a pivotal moment in Jim's academic career, a microcosm of his struggles to fit in and the chaos that ensues. The weekend begins with an excruciating car journey, enduring Welch's pretentious pronouncements on art and culture. Jim endures hours of amateur art criticism, desperately trying to feign interest while secretly longing for a cigarette and a pint of beer. He arrives at the cottage feeling exhausted and irritated, anticipating inevitable disasters. The weekend unfolds in a series of increasingly awkward and embarrassing incidents. Jim struggles to appreciate Welch's amateur paintings, his polite compliments coming across as insincere. He accidentally sets fire to a curtain during a drunken attempt to light a cigarette, cementing his reputation as a walking disaster. Trapped in uncomfortable conversations with Welch's wife and daughter, his social awkwardness is on full display. The climax arrives when Jim, in a fit of drunken frustration, defaces one of Welch's prized paintings. He adds a comical mustache and monocle to the portrait of Welch's mother. an act of rebellion with disastrous consequences. He wakes up with a throbbing headache and a sinking feeling of dread, realizing the full extent of his transgression. He knows his actions will have serious repercussions, jeopardizing his position at the university. The art weekend serves as a catalyst for Jim's eventual departure from the university. It exposes the deep chasm between Jim and his colleagues, highlighting his inability to conform to academia. The incident with the painting becomes a symbol of his rebellion against the pretentiousness he despises. It marks a turning point, pushing him towards a path of self-discovery and liberation. He begins to realize his future lies outside the university, in a world where he can be true to himself. Section 4. Dixon's Dance of Despair. 2. Left Feet and a Burning Desire. The college dance is another memorable example of Jim's social ineptitude and the unfortunate consequences of his attempts to conform. Dressed in an ill-fitting suit and consumed by anxiety, Jim navigates the dance floor with the grace of a drunken giraffe. He stumbles and bumbles, colliding with other dancers and spilling drinks with alarming regularity. He becomes the unwitting center of attention, his every awkward movement scrutinized by the watchful eyes of his colleagues and their spouses. He attempts to engage in small talk, but his attempts at wit and charm fall flat, replaced by awkward silences and forced laughter. He finds himself trapped in a conversation with Margaret Peel, Professor Welch's manipulative and emotionally unstable mistress. He endures her clingy advances and melodramatic pronouncements, desperately searching for an escape route. He longs to disappear into the background, to become invisible amidst the swirling mass of dancers. His attempts to impress Christine Callahan, a young woman he is genuinely attracted to, are equally disastrous. He stumbles over his words, his attempts at flirtation coming across as clumsy and insincere. He spills punch on her dress, further solidifying his image as the department's resident klutz. He watches in despair as she drifts away, drawn into the orbit of the more suave and sophisticated Bertrand Welch. The dance becomes a symbol of Jim's social alienation and his inability to fit into the world of academia. It highlights his discomfort with social rituals and his awkward attempts to conform to expectations. It reinforces his sense of being an outsider, a man out of sync with the rhythm of the dance. His experience at the dance underscores his growing disillusionment with university life and his yearning for something more authentic. Section 5. Merry England, a lecture from hell. Jim's disastrous lecture on Merry England is perhaps the most iconic example of his academic struggles and his tendency towards self-sabotage. Nervously clutching his notes, he stands before a room full of students and colleagues, his mind a jumble of anxieties and resentments. He begins his lecture with a shaky voice and a forced smile, his discomfort palpable. As he speaks, his carefully prepared notes become increasingly irrelevant, replaced by a stream of rambling digressions and sarcastic asides. He struggles to maintain his composure, his nervousness manifesting as a series of tics and fidgets. He plays with his tie, adjusts his glasses, and shuffles his feet, his every movement betraying his inner turmoil. He loses his train of thought, his lecture devolving into a chaotic mess of historical inaccuracies and incoherent ramblings. He realizes that he is losing his audience, their bored expressions a clear indication of his failure. His attempts to inject humor into his lecture backfire spectacularly, his jokes falling flat and his attempts at wit coming across as sarcastic and inappropriate. He makes a series of embarrassing factual errors, his lack of knowledge about medieval history exposed for all to see. He becomes increasingly flustered, his voice rising in pitch as he struggles to regain control of the situation. The lecture becomes a symbol of Jim's academic incompetence and his growing disdain for the subject he is supposed to be teaching. It highlights his lack of passion for medieval history and his inability to connect with his students. It marks a turning point in his academic career, solidifying his reputation as a failure and pushing him closer to the edge of dismissal. The lecture serves as a catalyst for his eventual departure from the university, paving the way for a new beginning. Section 6. The Unintentional Hero, Honesty and Its Unexpected Rewards. Despite his numerous mishaps and his generally cynical outlook, Jim possesses a certain endearing honesty that ultimately leads to unexpected rewards. He is incapable of feigning interest in things he finds boring, and he refuses to play the social games that are so prevalent in academia. His bluntness and candor, while often causing him trouble, also earn him the respect of those who value authenticity over pretense. His honesty is a refreshing contrast to the hypocrisy and artifice that surround him. His genuine affection for Christine Callahan, despite his awkward attempts to court her, shines through his clumsy exterior. He is drawn to her intelligence and her down-to-earth nature, qualities that he finds lacking in the other women he encounters at the university. His honesty about his feelings, even when expressed in a less than smooth manner, ultimately wins her over. He finds a kindred spirit in Christine, someone who appreciates his humor and understands his struggles.